So this is $500 Harry Potter cake that I've made, and in this video I will show you how. We will start with the speaking head. I've already published a tutorial on my channel and you can watch a full video, but basically you make a Rice Krispies base, add fondant details, and then cover with burlap textured fondant, sculpt the face with your fingers and like tools, and then airbrush and add highlights, and that's it. Next, we are making the candles. I know they should float, but come on, it's a cake. And it should fit in the box, it should survive a long drive, and meet many other practical constraints. So let's just make candles that will stay on the cake. So I heat my Isomalt in this silicone cup in a microwave, and then pour it in my mat. I let it cool for a minute or two, it depends on your environment. But you can see that it's not liquid anymore in the middle. So then I lift the mat and I lightly touch around the circle to feel the temperature. I pull one side and I stretch, and then I cut and form a wavy thing. You know how the flame looks. It's hard to explain and you definitely need to experiment with it, but I usually just make more of them and then I choose the pretty ones later. But they all will work. Then I'm making fondant cylinders for the actual candle, different sizes and different heights. And now it's time to assemble. Last time I've made them, I just pushed flames inside the candle, but for this particular cake I decided to make them more secure because of the long drive. And I decided to use the wire. I'm melting the base of the flame with a torch and then pushing the wire in. That's it. So they're not like really edible. But you know, kids are used to lollipops, they are not eating sticks, right? So you can explain to them that, okay, the wire is not edible. And this particular cake was for adults, so no issues there. And when they set a little, I am adding drops of wax that are just fondant tea drops. It's way faster to melt some white chocolate and add drips around the top, but the issue for me is that the color isn't the same. You can tell the drips are made from different medium. Anyway, I decided to go with fondant drips this time, so I made like 3 drips for every candle. It took me like half an hour. Now it's time for the snitches. I made them off camera because they're just balls with wings and I didn't add any extra details. I use black for elements that I'm going to paint gold because it gives them rich undertone. And I'm using powerful airbrush for this job with compressor, not the portable one like before, because the luster dust particles, they clog easily and you need bigger nozzle for them. As usual, I've made 2 snitches in case something happens, and it was smart because I actually did ruin the other one later. And you definitely need the mask for this. You can see all these particles flying around and you don't want them in your lungs. My airbrush was leaking and I've got these cool gold hands, but it's time to wash them and wash everything around, and time for the actual cake. The Book of Spells. It's a standard book cake and you've already seen a million of them probably. I've made another cake like this in January, but it was 3-tier with extra Gryffindor suit cake in the middle, but they didn't need so many servings, so I chose to keep the book only. So we start with a simple sheet cake and I'm covering the sides and adding lines to mimic paper. Then I added the cover and the binding and other details to make it look more realistic and more interesting. And don't forget the bottom cover. Just few strips of fondant will do the work. So the more details we add, the more visually interesting our cake will be. And now it's time to bring this boring rectangle to life with airbrush. Just adding the shadows around the sides and the binder, and everywhere it looks natural. And then highlights with dry brush and white gel food coloring. All around the cake, all the corners and sides, and you don't need to be a painter to do this. Just think about enhancing the shape. Finishing the binder, and when it's ready, it's time for gold details. I'm using mold to make these antique things in the corners because it's an old, inexpensive book. I push the fondant in the mold with quite a lot of pressure, and then I roll it, and then I flip the mold to take it out. My fondant sets pretty quickly, but if you are using regular fondant or maybe gum paste, I'll suggest you to wait a little before unmolding, so the fondant will have time to set. And every baker has their own tricks how to work with these molds that works for them, so you just need to figure it out for yourself. I paint them with brush because there is a lot of tiny details and indentations, and we don't worry about brush strokes here, they won't be an issue, but we will be able to get into all these tiny crevices. And then a little bit off camera, sorry, but I'm using piping gel to arrange 3 of the things in the book corners. And the worst part, the letters. I use stop-its to make them. If you never used them before, you need to figure them out, but they work really great for such intricate, tiny letters. I'm using shortening to attach the letters, because this way I will have time to arrange them and make them more straight. And finally, the book is ready. Let's make glasses. I've already prepared the base. Again, I'm making 2 of them just in case. And now I'm pouring the Isomalt. And after it sets a little, I'm using my torch to remove the air bubbles. Time to assemble the cake. I'm using these plastic straws to support my weight of the head, so it's not just sitting on the cake and pushing on it. Even though it's Rice Krispies, it's still quite heavy. So everything is going great, I'm enjoying my time, making this Gryffindor scarf, and then I heard someone pulling up to my driveway. The cake pickup should be in 3 hours, so I have plenty of time. But I still get worried, and when they ring the bell, it's everyone's nightmare to forget about the cake pickup or something. But anyway, I've asked them if they can wait like 15 minutes while I finish, and I rushed back. So yes, I ruined my snitch because I touched with my bare hands. I was trying to figure out how it will all fit in the box, because when I made them, I didn't realize that the wings are so wide and the box will not close. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm panicking here. And then like, whatever, let's do what I can. So I've added these rings instead, and then I've placed the candles everywhere around the cake, added the glasses, and that's it. It took me 6 minutes to make it. Usually at this step, I look critically at the cake, I turn it around, and I try to understand what else I can add to make it more pretty, more fancy. But this time I didn't have time for this. I was just running and trying to do everything, and I forgot to make another part of the scarf that should be in front of the cake. Being a perfectionist is hard, and people are paying you. You want to deliver the perfect cake for them. Anyway, they loved the cake, everything was great. It's just me, I just needed to let it go. So what, do you think this cake is worth 500?